Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us at the Microsoft Power BI UK user group. I'm your host, Leon Gordon, and I'm back with my co host as well, Pragati.
Hi everyone, so this is Pragati. I am the manager of UK Power BI UK user group. So welcome
Excellent.
everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Obviously, we're back with our weekly dose of Power BI learning. So it's going to be an absolutely amazing session today, following on from last week. We have some more Power Query goodness coming to you today. So with that being said, obviously, please do let us know where you're joining us from. We want this to be a very interactive session, so please do feel free to ask questions throughout. As always, this Microsoft Power BI UK user group session is going to be brought to you in association with Pomerol Partners. And we're going to just go into a bit of background around our speaker before I introduce him and hand over for his session. So in today's session, we're going to look at transforming data monsters using Power Query with Benny Ifeanyi Iheagwara. Benny is a data analyst at UrBizEdge. He is also a technical writer and community builder who is passionate about open source, simplifying topics, community, and blockchain. At the moment, he helps manage the Power BI learning community for financial modeling and valuation, and the Microsoft Excel and data analysis learning community, where he's based in Lagos. His overall goal is to create as much value for anyone that he interacts with while letting the universe do the rest. Benny, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Leon, for inviting me, and thank you to everybody for joining this session.
No problem at
So,
all.
yeah, and thank you, Gatti, again for inviting me as well.
No problem. It's an absolute pleasure to have you with us.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen.
Yep.
Okay,
Excellent. Thank you. We can see your screen coming through now.
Yeah.
All the best and enjoy your session.
Yeah. Good luck,
thank
Benny.
you, thank you so much. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at transforming data monsters using Power Query, and a little bit about me. My name is Ifeanyi Iheagwara Benny. I'm also a data analyst and business data analyst at UrBizEdge. I'm a technical writer, also a little bit of content creation and also open source contribution. I'm also the co-community manager of the Microsoft Excel data analysis learning group and the Power BI learning group, as well as the financial modeling learning group. So I'm more active on Instagram, on LinkedIn and a little bit of Twitter. So the agenda for today is going to be this. I'm going to first start with what is data monsters, what is Power Query. Then I'll look at the Power Query ETL process, and we'll do a little bit of demo on two data sets. So do you relive a data set I found on GitHub and another data set, which a website that has a list of different dirty data samples. And if there are any questions, Leon's going to notify me, and we'll answer whatever questions comes in. So data monsters. By data monsters, I mean dirty data, I mean raw data, I mean unorganized data. And this data usually characterized with they're usually missing key elements. It could be poor characters, it could be poorly formatted, there could be some duplicates, missed error, typos, or even data types. And there are various ways for you to clean your data. So you can't just use your data, the raw data, and build your model or to analyze. You need to undergo some transformation, and there are a lot of tools you can use. But today we're going to be discussing how to use it using Power Query. So Power Query is this data cleaning transformation engine room, which was built by Microsoft, and it allows you to get data from different data sources. So you can get data and from a cloud or from an on-premise database or even from a flat file like your Excel or a CSV file. So this is the extract part of the pipeline. So like I said, Power Query is an ETL application. ETL means extract, transform, load. So you extract data from these different data source, and then you move it to Power Query for the transformation process. And then you load it into these different applications, and you can analyze and visualize your data set. So Power Query, you can see it in two places. You can see it in there's Power Query desktop, there's Power Query online, or the data flow. So the Power Query desktop is found in Excel, also seen in Power BI. This is the one that's mostly used, and I guess a lot of people are very familiar with. And then there's Power Query online. The online version, if you go to your Power Query, your Power BI workspace, you can come to Plus and go to Data Flow. you add a new table, and you just pick in whatever data source from whatever you wanted. So is it an Excel file, is it a CSV file, is it a PDF? And so for now, this is an Excel file, and we can upload the file we want. So we have this, press OK. Okay, how to sign in. Just takes a while. So when I get to Power Query, it shows me the Power Query navigator, and I pick which file I want. So let's say something is called dirty file, and I press transform data, and it takes me straight to Power Query for transformation. The interface you see here is very, very similar to the interface you see on the desktop version. We're going to come to that. Okay, so before we move on, let's look at why I love Power Query. So Power Query has a very user-friendly UI, which has a collection of ribbons, buttons, very similar to from those that from an Excel background, and it also has this powerful M engine, which is also low code, no code. So we're going to be looking at it from when I'm going to manipulate the M code. We're just going to use the buttons and look at how simple the Power Query, simple it is to use Power Query. So Power Query also has this inbuilt pre-built transformation functions. We're just going to look at it by doing some bit click of buttons to clean our data easily, and you can also automate this process. So this is the interface of Power Query. We have the ribbons, which has the buttons, which you just click and then transform it into. When you click on a button, Power Query automatically writes the formula here in the M code. And whenever you load data or you extract data, the data in that database which you picked gets displayed there in the query list. The data preview previews the data you are on. So if I'm on a particular table, I get a quick preview of the data in this data preview, and I get the name of the table I am in, and the apply steps. So as you are cleaning your data, apply steps kind of records your steps you're taking. So you can always go back and cancel a step or go back and check out how something looks in Power Query. So let's jump into the demo session. For the demo session, I mentioned we're going to look at two different data sets. We're going to look at the UrLift, which is a CSV file on GitHub. And we're going to look at badly structured data types. And this one is from the M-Form Data Monkeys, which I found was a book by Ken. So if you click here, it will take me to this website. So this is the second website we're going to use, and this is the first one. We're going to use the UrLift. So I'm going to use Power BI, Power Query to do this, and I'm going to use Excel's Power Query to transform this. So the first thing you do is to open Excel, and you move over to data here. So this data type is this data is a CSV file. So I can download the CSV file, or I can just load it directly from the website. So I can click on the raw here on GitHub, and I have it there. So I just copy the URL, go to Excel, and come to from web. I paste it here, and I press OK. So this is the Power Query Navigator, which was kind of similar to what we saw when I opened Power Query online. That it displayed me all the sheets in that particular Excel sheet. So I click on Transform. So I want to transform the data using Power Query, and it opens Power Query. So this is the Power Query interface. This, like I mentioned, are all the buttons. This shows me the data or the query or the table which I loaded. And you can see this is the UrLift. This is the apply steps. So whenever I do the steps, it takes me, and this is going to show me the name of the table I'm in at the moment. So we're going to just look at Power Query. We're not going to write any M code. We're just going to be clicking buttons and we'll transform our data. So if you look at this data set, we have sessions, bench. This. So these are various exercise by the various people, and these are their different sessions and their progress over using the weight. And these are the names of everybody. So you notice this is Martin's, and this is Merrill, and this is Danny's. So we want to transform our data. I want to clean up this data in a way that we have maybe every names are here, followed by the last name, followed by the date before we will have all the sessions. So there are various ways of cleaning it, but I'm just going to show you where the way I'm going to clean it without writing an M code. So the first thing we need to do is we need to change this our headings. So to do that, you can, if you come here, most of the things you're going to be using when you're doing Power Query is mostly going to be the home ribbons or in the transform ribbons. The add ribbons does allows you to do a conditional, which is like an if statement in if you're familiar with Excel. So the first thing is to move this as our headers, and you can quickly just use first tool as header. So I click on it, and it gets recorded here in the apply step session, and it's named here promoted as. If we take a look at the M code here, we see it here, which tables promoted. So the moment you click or you click any of these predefined functions here, Power Query automatically writes this for you. Okay, so the next one I'm going to do is, like I mentioned, I want first name here, last name, and the dates. So I'm going to have to duplicate these columns so that I can at least get them, let's say, copy of them, which I can use to start with. So to do that, I can just right click and go to duplicate column. Okay, so I also do the same thing for this, and I do the same thing for this. Okay, okay, I made a mistake, not remove duplicate, but duplicate columns. And I do this also as well, duplicate column. Okay, so I've made a duplicate of these three columns. You can see session copy, bench copies, and squad copies. So I pick these three different columns and I move them to the beginning so I can start my transformation. Okay, so they're all here now. Okay. So now I think of a way in which these names get repeated throughout, and the same with the last name, same with the date, and then we have this now. So we just need to make here to only shows the various names, the various last names, and the various dates of every session. So to easily do that, I noticed that here there's this. So Power Query has this split column. This split column is similar to your test column function in Excel. So I click on the column I wish to split. I can click here, split by a delimiter, and I pick column. So I'm trying to, it gives me three different options: leftmost, rightmost, every occurrence. By leftmost means if the delimiter at the left is split. If it's at the right is split, and every occurrence, whenever it sees the column which I selected here, it should split it. But I only have a column here, so I don't really need to pick this. I can just pick the rightmost column so that it splits it. I'm very sure of what it's going to do. And now I have this, so I can delete this. But before I do that, let me do the same thing for this and also where else did it. So I also right click again, do another split column by a delimiter, and this time as well a column, and also again the most rightmost, and I press OK. Okay. I do the same thing again for these dates, and I come here and split column, delimiter, and column, and rightmost, and OK. Okay, so since I have what I will need here, I can delete these other columns. So I just select them, come to home, and I can do a remove columns. So remove columns means I want to remove these columns. Remove other columns means I want to remove other columns, but that's not what I want to do. I just want to remove this particular column. So I click on remove columns. And I have this. Okay, so I can change this now to be my first name. Make this as the last name. And make this as the every session. So now I have this. The next thing I can do is I want to take away these two parts that are showing this as well as the name showing here. So you can easily do this. It's like your filter, and I select that I do not want to see this, and again session, which I press OK. Now I have this. Yes, I think I cancel the names. Okay, before I do this, let me first of all fill this. So I select this tree and then do a fill down. And now I can do that step, which I want. Okay, so this now. Then I can delete these last two columns, which I do not want as well. Okay, so now we have the clean data sets which we want with everybody's last name. This is where the second person starts with their first name, the last name, the date, the sessions, and the various exercises they did with their progress as they go on. And once you're done with this, all you can do is close and load. So this is the transform part of the ETL process, and then now you load it. So you can just load it on Excel. Let us close and load. We can load it in intermediate data model. So I'm just going to close and load. And now we have the clean data right here in our Excel table. Okay. So the next one I'm going to do, I'm going to pick the second data, and I'm going to use this time. I'm going to use it using Power BI. So the second data is a data from this site. There's the data samples, getting out data with data samples. It has various different tables. So I'm going to pick the very first one, which is about the structural sales data. And the data was structured like this. And I want to clean it from here to having this cleaner version of it. Okay, so I'm just going to open Power BI. And like I mentioned before, you can get data from anywhere. So I can download the data set. I've already downloaded it, and I want to download it from Excel. So since I'm downloaded from an Excel table, I click on Get Data and select Excel. Go here, and I pick this. Okay, so if you remember this was very similar to what we saw in the online version of Power BI, which is this. This is exactly the data we also want to look at. And so come here, let me load both. So I will take a look at both of them, and I click on transform. Okay, so the transformation method could either be constructive, could also be destructive, could also be structural. So in this case, we have to be structural. This we're trying to transform it from how it looks here to more of like this. This is what we're trying to get. So okay, this. Okay, so we need to kind of turn this our table to each of them to have a columns in all of them. Everything should be in a column, and the rows should probably come as a rows. So to do this, you have to just use this what the transpose does. So the transpose treats your rows as columns and your columns as rows. But before you can do a transpose, the best advice will always be to unpromote your headers, because you're trying to make your rows columns and your columns row. So your header is kind of like a row. It's just so if you transpose it without moving it, you're going to be missing a particular row, which is very vital for the entire process. So I can cancel these last two steps, and now we have this right here. Okay, so since we have this, we're going to click on the transpose, and now it has transposed every data. So now we have, this was all our columns, and our rows are now columns. So we have more rows at the moment. The next thing we're going to do is, while I'm start transposing it, I'm going to fill down. So I'm going to fill down these two columns down here. Or I can first one just make this an header. Since this is session, this is shape mode, which is exactly what we exactly want here, session and shape mode. So to fill down, that's here. We use the fill downs in where we're doing the Excel one. So the filter does fills everything down. So it's going to fill this. It says customers. It's going to fill the customer down here and next to this and next to that. So I'll fill it down. And I also fill this one down. Okay. So after doing that, we're just going to promote this to be our header since everything is okay on these two parts. So we'll come back here and use first row as header. Okay. Okay. So I forgot to mention this. So this gives you, is what you're seeing in this view. So these are like your column quality, column distribution, and column profile. Okay. So the column quality, once you click on it, it comes and gives you the quality of every column. It tells you how valid it is, if there are any errors, if there are any missing values. The column distribution gives you more of like statistics. So the count, how many distinct, how many uniques is in every column. And then the column profile, which is usually turned off because of how large and destructive it can be, gives you, say, the column structures of the column. So it gives you like how many count, but probably doesn't make sense for a test column most of the time. So you can turn this off. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we want, these are all different orders IDs as columns, but we want the color IDs to be more on the rows, want them as rows. But these are okay. We could move this by maybe just renaming our column. But want this as rows. So that's where we're going to use a unpivot column. The pivot column is sometimes usually mostly confused by the transpose, but they do two different things. They are not in any way they're not in any way similar, just a bit similar, but they are really different. So the pivot column is going to turn all of these headers down here and everything down here as another row altogether. And to do this, we just have to select these last two and you click on unpivot. So we want to unpivot this column. Because we click on unpivot, it's going to unpivot this particular ones. But we want to unpivot the other columns in which are these other ones. So we'll click on the unpivot other columns. And it does unpivot it. So when you unpivot your columns, it automatically gives you this attribute and this value. So we can change it to what we have here, orders IDs and sales. And we'll click here as orders ID. We'll click here as our sales. Okay, so we can see the data is all right. And once you're done, all you have to do is close and load and load it right here in as well. Apply changes. And close and load it in Power BI. Okay. So now let's look at how we have applied all of this in the online version of Power BI. Like I mentioned, they are all similar in Power BI. You know, if you can still hear me. Okay, right. Okay, so that's the same way. It's just very, very similar to the Power BI. Let me also try to get the other one, which we did. Find uploads and browse. I want this. No, I keep signing out. Then I also want to get another web page. Okay, so I get here as a URL. Okay, come here and I paste it. Yes, I get a preview of the data I want. No, I didn't get it. Okay. Let me just use the one I downloaded. Open. Okay.
Penny, just while you're signing in now, just wanted to ask, do you have a preference in terms of using Power Query Online in the service or using Power Query in Power BI Desktop?
Okay. So I don't really have a preference. I think I'm more familiar with the desktop, so that's why we mostly use the desktop. But there's no really, I don't really have a preference. The only problem is like, okay, so online they have this issue of maybe like you have some connectivity issues and everything which could slow you down, so that it gets slow. But beside that, I think I actually like the desktop version than the online
Excellent.
version.
Thank you very
Do
much.
you do you have a preference?
I don't have a preference as such. Power Query Online seems to get a lot more features, the cloud-based version. As you can see there, for example, on the applied steps showing whether queries are folding, etc., as opposed to the desktop being slightly behind. So from that perspective, if I like to keep up to date with the latest tech, Power Query Online
Or
is
online will do it for you?
good to do it. But to be honest, the majority of work I do is based in Power Query in Power BI Desktop. So
Oh, okay, yes. So that's just really okay. Yeah.
excellent. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to replicate the exact same steps which I'm doing here in which I did in the desktop in the online version. So I'm going to start with let me start with this other one, the overlay. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the first thing I'm going to do is the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate all these columns. So I'm going to come here and duplicate like I did last time, duplicate these three columns. So yeah, so this what I meant. Okay, so let me move this column first. Okay, so is that lag time? No, no, skip. Oh, fuck. Okay. Okay, so I move in this other one as well. I also duplicate it. Then also come here and duplicate this one as well. Yeah, so this is a lag time we're talking about. Like before it does a step, it has this lag. Right. Okay, so just like we did it, we're just going to duplicate it ourselves. The only thing I would guess with this clicking of the button stuff, maybe writing the code is for that you see a lot more steps here compared to if you have used them language to do the entire process. Okay, so I'm going to also make again this first line again as the headers by going to home. Okay. Then I do the split. Also come here again and do the split. And so with the limiter, the column. Okay. Okay, so I'm not gonna like these first three columns. I'm just going to take them out. And like I did, I also fill down this first tree. So this is okay now. Okay, so I can also change the names here from sorry, first name. Here's the last name. Here's the dates. Then I can do the filter and okay. Yeah, so this the data set. So just like the desktop version, the online version gives citizens, and you can do most of the things you really need in Power Query by just clicking the steps. The M language will make it more effective and more easier for you to work. So I would have need this all these steps if I've used written most of the stuff using the M language. So I go to this other one, which is the second one, which we did in Power BI, and I would also split the exact same steps I did. So like I mentioned, the first thing you need to do is you need to unpivot. You need to first of all unpromote your headers. So we can just do that by okay, so we have this now. And now you can transpose it. So make your columns rows and make your rows columns. Okay, so now you have this, and yes, you can fill them. Okay, so next I'm going to do is just to promote back the headers which I unpromoted earlier. Okay. And okay, so something I forgot to mention, when you're doing your transpose, you should always make sure that you don't have any empty columns so that it doesn't get affected in the process. And the next thing, I select these first two columns. Select these first two columns and for the columns, then so I can now change this to order ID. And this is the sales. Okay, so when you're done with it, you can close and save. You can save your data flow, give it a name. So let me give it save. And it is saved now. So the one we got from the web, whenever if more data is being added there, all we have to do is refresh and we get it. So that's the automated part of the Power Query I was talking about. Okay. So hello Leon.
Hi, Benny. We do have a couple of questions coming in now. I'm going to jump in with one if that's okay. So this question comes in from Christian. So hi, Christian. Thank you again for joining us. So the question is, do you think dependency view will eventually land in Excel besides Power BI desktop?
Do you think what?
That the dependency view will eventually land in Excel besides just Power BI desktop?
I really can't. I don't really know if it really lands in Excel, Power BI desktop. But I mean, probably sometime in the future we should see that. Depends on the team.
I think we'll all keep our fingers crossed for that one, especially all of the Excel fans out there. Sometimes they feel a little bit like their Power BI's poorer brother or cousin. But yeah, fingers crossed for that one, Christian. I think it would be great if we do see that type of technology filter down for Excel, because obviously Excel is still a very universal tool being used across the globe currently.
Okay.
Excellent. Thanks, Benny. That's all for now.
Okay. Right. So we have seen Power BI desktop online. We have seen Power BI on and there are just a few differences, like Kristen has pointed out in research. So some of them have, like they mentioned, the online version has a lot more features compared to the desktop, and super the Power BI on Power Query as well. But everything you need for your transformation steps are almost the same in no matter the platform you use, and it just goes over the simple ETL process. So you just extract data from a number of data sources that you need, and you transform it in Power Query, and then you can load it wherever you want, depending on the platform you're using. Okay. So that's the 3 sessions for now. Hello, Leon.
Hi, Benny. Excellent. Thank you very much. I've just added myself and Pragati back to Back to the stream. Thank you very much for going through that session for us. We had some great feedback coming in from both YouTube and LinkedIn. So we had Cheetan saying that they were loving it. We also had JB saying that it was a very informative session and thanking you for going through that for us. I think that as you demonstrated that there are two ways, two really good ways to go ahead and use Power BI, Power Query for our users. One being the online version.
The online version or the
Exactly, and Power Query desktop as well. You wouldn't have seen it, but there have been some conversations going on in the chat in terms of how some of our users utilize Power BI desktop and Power Query online together. I'll just hand over to Pragati to go into a bit more detail around that.
okay.
Yeah, so I think there was some conversation going around. Like, I think Russell actually mentioned, like, sometimes online Power Query can be, quite slow, or sometimes you may
Yes.
face some performance challenges. But then yeah, data vibe, actually that's me basically. I just responded, like, especially when you work with data flows, or when you're trying to consume data, connecting to data flows in Power BI desktop, then Power Query online can be really a good area where you can lift and shift all your heavy transformations and then consume that
Like
thing
doing
in your Power BI
Power
desktop.
BI.
So you're basically doing the main thing in data flows, Power Query
Yeah.
online, and then bringing just your transform data to Power BI desktop. So it kinds of just adds more to your performance rather than doing everything like heavy lifting, shifting in your Power BI desktop.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what people are talking about. And even I think Christian, I think that there was a okay, there's actually a question from Christian regarding that. I myself was typing the same question, but one question, I think, Leon, should I go ahead with the question that
Yes,
Christian just
please.
asked? Because
Yes.
because I think Christian has got really right question there. Like, do you recommend using PPU license so enhanced computing engine activates, or recommend trying easier transformations in data flows?
Because I've not really used the enhanced computers engine activate, but I've used Dataflows, and Dataflows seems to work so well for me. So when you have transformed your data in Power on the online version of Power on this, you can just get it here from the Power BI data flow on your power in your desktop version of Power BI, and you can work with your data.
Okay.
But well, which have you made use of the enhanced computing engine before?
I haven't used it before because I'm not sure, Christian, have you used that PPU license with enhanced compute engine activate
Sometimes.
option there? Like, for example, currently I'm working for a client where they just have like pro license. They don't want to go for premium license at this
Horizon
stage. So I'm basically creating all the transformations within data flows by
before.
making sure I'm not creating any computed entity, because at the moment you create a computed entity, you require a premium license to refresh them, right? So I'm making sure how I avoid that and do all the transformations for them in Power Query Online. Because when you work with a huge data set, then you have to think about things like where you really want to do the main transformations
Sure.
rather than doing everything in Power BI desktop, right? So, I mean, that's what my experience has been. I'm not sure, Leon. I'm sure you must have worked with premium license clients, Leon, right?
Yeah, definitely. So working with premium, the different SKUs there, and obviously with PPU as well.
Okay.
Fully agree with your statement there, Pragati. I don't think it matters which tier you work with, to be honest, in terms of pushing the transformations as close back
Mhm.
to the source as possible.
Yeah.
Then I recommend doing that every single time. But I think there's probably some caveats to be aware of from a PPU perspective. And again, happy to hear more from Christian on this as well. Now, PPU is obviously $20 premium per user, which is great, and it's kind of been that bridging point between full scale premium and the cost involved with that, and really has come in at a price point where it's viable for smaller groups or departments that need this functionality at a good cost point. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm correct in saying this, but happy to be corrected because it's been some time since I've used this. But for every premium per user, so for example, taking advantage of the enhanced compute engine within PPU, it then becomes only available to other users that have a PPU license, which, if you are using a PPU license, can become a bugbear, because you may not want everybody in the organization to have a PPU license, but then they cannot access the goodness that you're kind of giving them without one. So there's probably that caveat to be aware with. And then from the perspective of premium's kind of full fat for everybody, should we call it? So again, from that perspective, I think it's just access to everybody. Christian has come back with a comment, which I'll just put onto the screen now. And again, he mentions the main disadvantage for using PPU.
Other
Is that
things to consume.
yeah, so again, pretty much echoing my point. So thank you very much for confirming that, Christian, because it has been some time. But yeah, that's pretty much the best bit to be aware of, is that if you have, for example, let's say 50 users that are going to be using PPU capabilities, then it's going to be a lot cheaper than a dedicated premium capacity SKU. But to access the functionality, all of those 50 users would need PPU.
Yeah. I think what my understanding is, it in the end depends on the number of users who are going to consume this kind of facility, right? Because if you have got 1,000 users, rather than buying 1,000 PPU licenses, you should rather go for a premium
Usually
capacity,
pros.
right? So in the end, it will depend on how many users you have who are going to use these kind of capabilities you're trying to give them.
Exactly, and that, like you said, there is definitely a tipping point. I'm not aware of what it is, to be honest with you, at the top of my head. But exactly that. I think that you need to first assess for your environment and the amount of users, and then obviously make your choice based off that from a
Definitely.
PPE perspective. But
Yeah.
really agree, great question, and really sparked a good conversation there as well. I'm just putting in the chat. So every time we do one of our webinars, we always ask for feedback, anonymous feedback. So please do feel free to provide us with that feedback. What it helps is for us to be able to choose topics that obviously our community wants to learn about, and obviously let us know how we're doing in terms of, is everything audible? Can you see the screens okay? And it really helps us to put together sessions that are going to be beneficial to you. So please do take the time out to do that.
And yeah, I think feedback is really important, guys. I mean, especially for the speakers who put in a lot of effort to bring that content for you. And it's really important that you go and fill that feedback. So please go and fill the feedback, because it will really help Benny for his next upcoming sessions, how he can improve, or what other things he might add to improve his speaking session. And also, we as a user group, we try to bring different contents to you guys. So please do give us some feedback on how we can improve ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm just reading Russell's comments. He said the online version can be a bit quite slow and a little buggy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's my only problem. It's not with that or Excel Online. Yeah.
Yeah,
I also
and
find it
and I think one thing what I really find challenging sometimes in online Power Query is, like Leon, as you said, like it has got one of the advantage that you can easily see query folding. But
yes.
sometimes when you're connecting to some of the data source, like for example, say Dataverse or some other, I don't know. I've got little experience with Dataverse, but it's hard to see whether query folding is happening or not. I'm not sure if it is a data source issue, or it's something that Power Query Online doesn't tell you in a good way. But I have faced those kind of challenges before. I'm not sure how we figure those things out.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I'll be totally honest, I'm probably not the best person to ask, for two reasons. I don't really do a lot in Power Query. I tend to, as I say, I would generally
Yes.
do a lot of my work in SQL within a SQL Server, Synapse or Databricks.
You
And then
basically do everything at the safest side,
Okay.
Leon,
Exactly,
right?
but then even then, so for example, even then, when I do go into Power Query, I tend to use Python, and then either call a Python script as a data source, and
He's good at Python,
Uh,
so he talks about Python and machine learning.
that's
yeah.
why I apologize. So I'm not the best person to answer that
No, but
question.
that's a good point that you do most of the, I mean, transformations in the
Oh,
database side area, right? Closest to the source.
okay, so
That's again a great point. Like always try to do everything nearest to the source rather than doing everything on your reporting end, right? So that's
Yeah.
again a good thing.
Yeah, I agree, and I can elaborate on that slightly, just while we've got a few minutes left. So, with this being the case, what we tend to do is have what we call a data derived layer. So this will be a set of views. So we'll have our underlying tables where we land the data, and then we'll transform our data within views. Then we then use these views as our data sources, so we can do everything we need to do in terms of manipulating the data, renaming columns within these views, and we protect those views from any underlying changes to the table schema as well. So really, we're doing all of our preparation, generally in SQL or SQL, however you want to pronounce it, and then we then use this as our derived layer, as such as our data source, and that's just been our standard pattern for a long time. So I don't really get into the nitty gritty quirks of Power Query
Yeah.
like
I
everybody else.
think that there's one really good comment from Russell there. I mean, I'm just reading it because we have got some time there. Like because I mentioned Dataverse, he just said like he had few issues with Dataverse while creating data flows and then swapping between dev and prod environments. Russell, can you elaborate on like what kind of issues you really had, because that can really help anyone working with these kind of things, because I myself have experienced that. Like Power Query Online is not really that performant, especially when I'm using Dataverse as a connector and trying to bring everything in data flows. So I'm really not sure what kind of issues you're trying to point, but it will be great to have some insight on that.
Yeah, definitely. And just while waiting for that question as well, Pragati, I know you've mentioned data flows a couple of times there. I actually had a conversation with a client today, and they asked me when's the best or what's the best use case for a data flow. So I'm going to pose that question out there to be answered, if that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in my view, if I want to answer that, I think data flow, I mean, the use case where you will really need a data flow is like where you're trying to create a self-serve kind of reporting environment for the user. So, for example, you create a data flow, do all the transformation, publish that, and then bring that data flow into Power BI, create your model, publish that as a data set, and give that data set to different report builders or different, maybe management team who are really fine with creating by dragging and dropping and creating their own reports or dashboards. So I think that's the kind of, I mean, one of the use case I can think of, because that's kind of a use case I've worked on before, where people really want that standard data set with the standard naming conventions and the only relevant data that they need for reporting, and then they can consume that data in Power BI quickly and then try to drag and drop and create few insights out of it. That's it. So that's one of the use case, I mean, I have experienced before where I use a data flow. I mean, happy to hear what audience has got to say, because I'm sure there are many other use cases people might have worked on with the data flows. So I feel like having that control on the data can be something where you can use the data flow.
Satellite data sets, I guess.
Definitely.
What
What about from your
about
experience, Benny?
So what?
Have you
Oh,
used
so I
like
really use data flow, like trying to create like a subset of the actual data, like say that's what I've mostly used data flow for.
okay?
Also,
Sorry, go on, Candle.
this.
Mhm.
Okay, so what about centralized data sets as against data flow? Um, so
Yeah, I think the only
that's
line I would give from a data flow perspective would be the reuse of code. So when you have transformations that are happening multiple times across an organization, rather than sharing the data sets or yeah, using a data flow is really a good way of giving access to the data, like you say, once it's been transformed. And then Benny, you were going to speak in regards to Priyanka's comment there.
okay. So I was saying centralized data sets as against data flows. So first of all, I guess what does you mean by centralized data set?
Yes, I think from this perspective, it sounds like, and again, Priyanka, please do jump in and then some more context if you'd like to. It sounds like a golden data set, shall we say. So a centralized data set that's being offered out to the business, where everything is already modeled, standardized, governed, and signed off by the business, and then users are then accessing
Yes.
everything from there would be my take on it.
Yeah, I think that's what I myself understand. I think one advantage of data flow, what I would say is like many people call like data flow is like a replacement for the Power Query transformations as well. So as we were discussing before, doing all the relevant transformations in a different layer will just help us with the performance in on the Power BI reporting side. So I think using data flows along
Yes,
with
that's
data
very
set
good.
could be helpful in that way. Like you're just, I mean, I would say again that you're doing all your heavy lifting in data flows
Improve.
rather than your Power BI desktop.
Yeah, agreed. And like I say, Priyanka's just gone into a bit more detail there in
Yeah.
regards to it being a certified enterprise data
That's very
set.
good.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Yes.
exactly that golden data model, which you give out to the rest of the organisation that you're verifying is like we say certified. The good
Hmm.
news is nobody's asked us anything about data marts yet, which has been my hot topic. Um,
I think people are still trying that, Leon.
it's
But have you able to try it yet?
yes. It's
You have able to try it yet?
yeah, it's really really cool functionality. Um, and yeah, as you mentioned, maybe people haven't been able to try it yet or get their hands on it. Obviously, being in preview currently, but I think similar to some of the conversations we're having here around giving end users access to data once it's been transformed, landed,
Hmm.
etc. It's giving a bit more power to those that are analytically minded. Maybe too much power. Um, that's one that's there for debate. But in terms of
Yeah.
not having to go to IT to be able to land data in a database can be a really big advantage. I'm sure there can be a lot of disadvantages to that as well. So yeah, but I'll be interested to see how that one progresses.
I'm sure when people start trying this data mart feature, they'll come up with different views. Like because until we try it, we never know how things may go wrong with these functionalities, right? I mean, same things happen with data flows, right? In the starting, when it was announced, we were very excited, but once we started using it, we can now see where things are lacking, or where we really need improvement. So I think could be same with data marts. Anyways, honestly, I haven't tried data marts, so I'm not the right person to comment on it. But yeah, look forward to trying it. Maybe in the next session we can have a discussion about it, Leon.
Oh, definitely. I can feel a demo coming up. But just because we're on the subject of Power Query, the Power Query powers the data mart. So the whole
Yes.
ETL process of landing data within a data mart is Power Query. Exactly what Benny's walked us through today in terms of Power Query Online. The interface is exactly the same. The data sources, I believe, are like for like. Happy to be corrected on that. But yeah, I think that for those that are using Power Query to extract, transform, and load data, you're going to be right at home with data marts as well.
I think
Cool.
Priyanka has had to try it. Priyanka had used it because she just said the governance with data mass is interesting.
Yeah. Hopefully we get that topic soon
Talking.
with a speaker
Yes,
here on the group.
exactly. Please put it into the feedback for the session.
Yeah.
Let us know that you want to know more about data marts, and again, we'll make it happen for you
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, definitely put on the topics you want to, hear more about, because we can definitely bring speakers for you with those topics. So yeah, that's why that feedback is important for us. Looking what you want to hear about, so we bring you that kind of content on the user group. So definitely don't forget to, fill that feedback.
Exactly. And with that being said, I think we're close to time. So, Benny, I want to take this opportunity to thank you very much for joining us today, all the way from Lagos, Nigeria. And like I say, it's been an absolute pleasure for you to share your knowledge with us. And we look forward to having you back with us again in the future.
Definitely,
Yeah, and
Benny. Yeah,
thank you, Leon,
thank you
and
so much.
Priyanka
Yeah,
for
I think your topic
contributing.
literally gave us a lot many discussion points today. So
Yes.
yeah, we look
Uh,
forward to something new from you in future.
uh, Thanks so much for inviting me for the session.
No problem at all. And with that being said, please do join us next week as well, because we're going to be looking at Power BI Embedded and the different capabilities available for us with Power BI Embedded with Temideo Omini as well. So please do join us at the same time next Thursday. We'll be back with you live and direct. Pragati, as you mentioned, absolutely amazing session. Some really good talking points there. I could go on for a little while about a couple of those topics, but I won't.
but yeah, I think it's always great to have that kind of conversation in the chat as well, because it kind of gives more interaction to the topic as well, because I just feel like it's more interesting when people are talking about things in the background. And obviously that chat which we were having in the background just gave us more ideas around what kind of topics we really need to bring on this user group. So yeah, thanks for that, everyone.
Definitely. Thank you, everybody. Once again, this session has been brought to you in association with Pomerol Partners. Obviously, I've been your host, Leon Gordon, and with me, we've had our co-host, Pragati Jain. We'll be back with you next week, so please do stay safe. And you could have been anywhere in the world, but you've been here with us at the Microsoft Power BI UK User Group.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.